world, or maybe it's good morning actually. I'm not sure where you are. By the way, if you're joining us right now, please do type below where are you joining us today, what location you're at, and what you're after today. Because today we'll be speaking about something what the world needs to hear. It is all about how to build healthy relationships and co-create together. And of course, we're going to start with intimate relationships, which people do suffer with at the minute because it is post-lockdown time. In some countries, still lockdown time. But also, we're going to discuss friendships and business and collaborations and many other aspects of wonderful relationships in our lives. And today, I have the phenomenal, the amazing, the most tremendous person with whom we can definitely have a really good discussion, Adrian Hales, who is an expert in transformative journey. He is coaching whilst he's resolving the inner conflict by an awakening inner power. So can you just listen to this again, how powerful it sounds, right? Just listen to every single word and think to yourself, could I have any better guest for this show today, right? So Adrian is an expert in transformative journey coaching, which resolves the inner conflict by an awakening inner power. I think this is really powerful. And Adrian, I could not have any better, any more tremendous, any more influential and also inspirational person than you talking about such an important topic today. So thank you so much for coming into my studio today, back again, because you had been already here a few times.
Yeah, I've been here quite a few times with you. And what's really interesting is that, well, by the way, thanks for the introduction. I think what's really interesting is that we're talking about, how we relate to the world, each other in business, in life, in relationships, and how we co-create. Because when we're working together, whether that be in business or life, it's important to co-create something, whether that be a vision, whether that be a mission, whether that be building a family, building a movement. Yeah. And you are probably, I would say, one of the top peoples at building relationships and bringing people on. And whether you knew it consciously, you've been, with all these shows, you've been co-creating with other people. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they say in mBIT, which is a big community that I'm part of, right, around neuroscience and ancient wisdom, specifically around how you apply that in the coaching world, a big thing is about co-creation, is how do we co-create a better world? So you're already doing it. So great to be on the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Adrian. It's so special to hear from you. I really appreciate that. But I think we were sent here on this planet of Earth within this lifetime, whether people believe in reincarnation or not, everybody has different beliefs. But I believe we were sent here to produce, to create, to really leave something after ourselves, whether it is an amazing offspring and you have great children, or you left a massive legacy and you changed the world. In each case, it's a beautiful journey. And what can be better than actually joining powers together of two healthy people? And that's the key word, healthy people with healthy mindsets in order to co-create. And I'm so passionate about it. So when we were discussing what shall we talk about, and you proposed this topic, I was like, oh my God, yes, let's do that.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is, I think, in the personal development world, the coaching world, it can be quite me focused, and we take on, I want to talk about me. It's everything is about me, and the most important thing is when we're working with people like on a podcast, it has to be about win-win. So the question I asked you is like, what do you want to talk about? And you were like, well, it's you're coming on the show, and I was like, well, actually, let's do something that we can both relate to.
Yes.
And that's an important lesson really about creating win-win solutions, because what happens when the balance gets tipped, when it's just all about the other person, that creates, over time, that will create resentment.
Yeah.
So it's always about the balance of the giving both ways. So I was happy that we could obviously do that today and co-create and foster like a win-win solution for us both, really.
Absolutely. And this will be very powerful because with the message going around the world, because usually we have people from different parts of the world, different countries. And by the way, I would love to hear where you're based right now. I think, Adrian, you're based in London. Is it right?
Yeah. Southwest London.
Yeah, you're based in London, yeah, because usually we have people like from all sorts of different countries and places in the world. So please let me know your location. Let's make sure this message of healthy relationships, whatever type, intimate, friendship, business relationships. So this message about how to build healthy relationships and how to co-create together goes around the globe. Because imagine what we can create all together, a healthy generations to come if we start working on ourselves. But Adrian, I really enjoyed the fact that you already mentioned a great tip, which I love. Honestly, you start with value straight away. We can't just have a chit chat. No, you have to drop some value. Right? That was good. And you said about you have to always make sure it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And how powerful is that? Could you elaborate more on this? Just in case if somebody is not aware what win-win, or if somebody still thinks it's only about them. Could you please elaborate more? What exactly you define by win-win?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Me and my girlfriend earlier, she was rushed around trying to get to this meeting. And I was focused on, right, now I need to get the podcast done. I got a podcast done with Olga at 1:00. That's my only focus. And she had to go out because she had like a work meeting. So she had to get ready, get dressed, polish up, and then get out. And she was trying to make dinner at the same time. So then I looked at, there's a bit of an imbalance, and she was getting a little bit frustrated. I've got to get out, I've got to do this stuff. And my initial focus was, now I've got to get the podcast done. And also the plumber was in fixing the bathroom. So I had all these things going on. And I thought, okay, the Olga podcast is in 30 minutes. That's parked. That's out there in the future. What can I do to help you? And then I ended up cooking dinner, which enabled her to calm down a little bit, get ready. And then literally as we went live, she said, thanks for your help and have a good day. And then she left. So I think it's just about that. The win-win really is about compromise, and it's about helping the other person out, and also asking, what's important to that other person. If you are in a business, for instance, I remember the story is that often in business, there's lots of different conflict, like inner conflict. Mm-hmm. And it's very self-serving. People are there to hit their targets, to get their promotion, to get their recognition. And you've got lots of people going off in different directions. Mm-hmm. And that can be an example of a family. It can be an example of a business. It can be an example of any communities or tribes or relationships. Mm-hmm. And it's very important to take time to understand, like you were speaking before, that you'd found someone new in your life. And it's very important to find that time to work out what's important to them and also what's important to you, and then work out where your commonalities are, but also work out where you're going to have to compromise, because I think we always want the perfect relationship. But actually seeking that perfection stops you. You're really hiding yourself from fear of rejection, fear of being let down, or someone breaking your trust. But actually it's realizing that we're all human. We're not perfect. We never will be. And it's then focusing really on the compromise side of it, as well as being aligned with people that resonate with your values.
Love that. I really like the fact that you highlight the importance of not aiming to be perfect and not expect others to be perfect. And I must say, Adrian, that was something what I personally was struggling with, because naturally I was such a perfectionist. I always wanted things to be absolutely perfect, like seamless, absolutely amazing and spotless. And for me to actually recognize that, hello, you are not perfect, was a step number one. But step number two was to release not being perfect, because one thing is to realize you're not perfect and beating yourself at that. But second thing is actually to release it and just accept yourself being just a human being. You're not an alien. You're just a human being. But exactly the same actually goes towards other people. We want them to be absolutely perfect without making any mistakes, without having any actions which, we will judge sometimes, without having anything in the past which we'll be probably raising our eyebrows about. But it's all about respecting them for who they are and who they became. And I think personally, and tell me, what do you think about this? I think personally that people unfortunately make too many mistakes in their relationships because they get together and they forget that most important tip of accepting each other the way they are. People look at each other as a material, as a project, as, oh, that's a good marriage material. I'm going to fix you. I like you. You're perfect, but now I'm going to fix you. And I personally think the acceptance of people who they are for what they are and who they became is one of the most important keys in order to build healthier relationships. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's a journey, really. Self-acceptance is a journey. It really depends on what you've experienced throughout your life, what kind of conditioning and what you've been taught. But I would say the personal development journey, as we were speaking about before, I think we always encourage people to go on that as well, because it increases the self-awareness. And when we can be more aware of some of our patterns that we maybe inherited from family or they've been passed down for generations, I think it's very important to look at those certain patterns and asking ourselves, are they serving it? Are they serving us? And are those certain patterns serving us within our relationships? And what could be stopping us from relating to others? Because I think the relationship that we have, or how we relate to ourselves, is the number one relationship, and how we relate to others is important. But I think that I was told this thing by my coach once, and it was, when we're hanging around with people, when we want to spend time with people, whether that's a future partner, whether that's a family member, a friend, or even a new coaching client or a business relationship, the barometer to understand whether that relationship works for us is how we feel. But how do we actually feel around that person? Like, what's going on internally? Because a lot of us don't check in internally. So what are we experiencing when we're around that person? And then likewise, if it feels bad, like, what's being communicated, something's not right there. And if it feels good, obviously stay with that person. And we have those drains and radiators. So people that radiate energy and make us feel good, and also people that drain our energy. And it's really an interesting thing, is because since I've gone on this journey, and I think when we're children, we're almost compelled to listen to authority, listen to parents, and we believe that those people have to be within our lives always. We almost feel like obliged to have people in our lives. But then I think I was speaking to someone the other day, actually, and they said that they had this moment of realization that actually you don't have to have anyone within your life if it's not serving your greatest good, because we get to pick and choose. So that's my kind of biggest advice, because self-love, or the feeling of self-love and respecting ourselves, comes from maintaining those boundaries and maintaining those boundaries. And often, if we feel good around somebody, that's a good connection with somebody. Like, we always feel good when we're communicating. But if your boundaries are getting overstepped and you're not feeling good, that's communicating that either that relationship's not working for you anymore, or you need to compromise on something.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. And here I would like to bring this metaphor, like with the food, because we know when we ate something good because we feel good. And then we know when we ate something dodgy because we have sometimes deli belly, right? And this deli belly is making us to sit in the toilet a bit longer. So same with people, actually. When you feel great, when you feel energized, when you feel like, oh, that was a great meeting, that means it's a person to go to. But if you feel a bit like, feel drained, and especially we should listen to the signs from universe. What happens on the way meeting those people? What happens, before you have the phone call with those people? I think it's quite important to just watch out and see. And if things completely go wrong, then maybe just not the right person. And very often people kind of don't want to listen to their own intuition, thinking, it's just nonsense. But actually, the more you listen to your intuition when it comes to people, the better it will communicate with you. Because you just have to trust it. And as you said, the feeling is one of the things which can show you what actually works, what doesn't work. It's really powerful, really, really powerful.
Yeah.
But Adrian, don't you think it is such a journey for people to actually build healthy relationships? Because let me ask you this personal question, if you don't mind. Because, by the way, nothing is scripted here. Those who are watching us right now, whether it is Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, we don't script anything. It is absolutely generic. It's very, very organic conversation where actually there is nothing prepared, right? We have a really honest, transparent, and completely open conversation here. And therefore, you also are welcome with your questions or your stories or your locations where you're based, whatever you want to share with us, right? But here, Adrian, my question to you is, what helped you to understand what is this thing as healthy relationships? Like, how did you come up to these terms of what is healthy relationships?
Yeah, I think it's something that we spoke about, previously around, healthy relationships. But I think it came from when we're in business or when we're in life. What happens is that people overstep our boundaries. Whether I've been in jobs before where people have threatened me with my job if I don't kind of play the game and play into their model of the world. Yeah. We have maybe teachers in the past that have told us this is how it has to be. Yeah. And we might have had people in business who haven't had our best intentions. Mm-hmm. So what happens is people start to overstep our boundaries, which means that subconsciously they start to do things which create a level of inner conflict or dissatisfaction or unhappiness with us, because number one, we're not sure how to communicate to enforce our boundaries, mm-hmm. or being clear on our needs, or we're not sure how to communicate in a way that shows that person what they're doing, which holds a mirror up to them, which of course, when that happens, stops the behavior. So we don't get taught those things. So throughout our lives, people have overstepped our boundaries, and we've probably done the same to other people as well. But what happens is that causes a sense of unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and it's not a great feeling. So when I started learning NLP and when I started learning mBIT, you'll be familiar obviously with the NLP side as well. When I was working with my coach, we worked on many hours, actually probably a good 6 months, on how do we communicate to others, mm-hmm. in such a way that we remain in a neutral position, be clear on what's going on so we both learn, so that we walk away from the conversation or the experience feeling good, or not feeling completely empowered and not feeling completely disempowered, but feeling in a state of peace. So I learned some strategies. So then it was, I suppose then you could categorize that is really maintaining healthy relationships, or how we relate to others. So I was working with a coaching client yesterday, actually. And one of the stories that we were speaking about, one of the things I encouraged them to do, because they're a young professional, but what had happened is they'd finished kind of their early years, and they were coming out of learning from parents and expectations that are put on us. And they were going into the business world, and they were finding that their boundaries kept getting overcrossed, which means people were asking them to do work. They were promising and not delivering. They were asking loads of things off that person and not progressing them, giving them more money. So what that person found is that they didn't really understand where their future was going, and they felt dissatisfaction at work. So because what was happening is their boss was always late for meetings, and their boss didn't really know much about them, would just do the odd performance review every 6 months. And their boss wasn't really focusing on their career development, what's important to them.
Right.
So of course, as we know, that creates conflict, mm-hmm. mainly because we don't know how to express, mm-hmm. and then communicate. So what I did is I got them to say the word if. So when people ask a lot of stuff off you, and if you're like a kind of people pleaser and you just want to take on everything, over time, there's that factors in resentment because it's not a win-win.
Mhm.
So I got them in their performance review to let the boss speak. So the boss was saying, we want you to do this. Okay, so that's, for instance, if Olga was the boss, and you were saying to me, we're doing all these things, I'd say, look, Olga, I'm happy to do all those things if you can help me with my personal development over the next 6 months, if you can help me with a raise, providing my performance is going in the right direction, and number 3, and if you can give me a manageable workload, which means X, Y, and Z. So what you're doing is you're using the word if to trade off what's important to you both. So that's an interesting thing around maintaining healthy relationships.
I love that. It's almost like you don't say no, you agree, but with your terms. Because people will want you to do something for them because it's a win for them. But once you bring your if, this is your other part of this win-win. I love that. That's really, really good tip. Really good tip. I love that. Amazing.
I was taught that by a coach of working with my coach. And the interesting thing is I use it now in business because there's so many requests from you, people wanting to come on my podcast, and there's requests and we get pulled everywhere. And I think just using that word if, it allows us to talk about what's important. So someone the other day said, do you know any really great podcasts? I'd love to be a guest on that podcast. And the person that put that out has been on like kind of TV and stuff like that. And somebody tagged me in. Somebody tagged me in the post. Mm-hmm. So that person then reached out to me and said, I'd love to be on your podcast. And I said, yeah, I'm happy for you to be on the podcast and I'm happy to record that if you make sure you share it with your network.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, of course. So straight away, we've got a reciprocal benefit. Mm-hmm. So that's a good tip for everyone who's listening.
I love that. That's really powerful. Yeah. So those who are listening also right now, depends where you are. I'm sure you're going to work at any corner of the world, at absolutely any corner, because very rarely people will come up to you and they will say, okay, I'll do this if you could do this. People don't do that. People always start with, I want you to do X, Y, Z. They're placing their own demands on what they want from you. So yes, that's really amazing tip from Adrian Hales. And you see, that's how I knew that you'll be the best person to put on this topic, how to build healthy relationships, because you know so much and you're in this field forever now, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. All right, so what we have covered so far is actually release the expectations from somebody being perfect. Accept them for the way they are. If it is about building, co-creating together, depending whether it is intimate friendship or business relationships, make sure it is win-win. And if they don't propose your win, in that case, you propose your own by saying your if. That's really, really important to remember. Yes, I agree with you here. It's really, really important. But also, I just remember from my own experience, to me, it took ages to realize what is healthy relationships. Because of, again, my background and, the way how we learn from our parents and we learn from our friends and everybody else. But for me, the big stepping stone was actually about sharing who you really are, rather pretending how great you are, sharing your fears, sharing your insecurities, sharing your dreams, sharing your aspirations, sharing plans and lack of plans. And for me, that was such a big thing that when I realized I wasn't doing that before, it almost hit the house. I realized that if I would probably be sharing more, probably my past relationship would be so much better at many aspects, not just in intimate relationships, but also in friendships and also in business and also in any other collaborations. So I wonder, Adrian, what is your take on this? How do you feel about how much people should share with each other when they co-creating these amazing relationships?
Yeah, I think people should share as much as they feel comfortable. But I think one of the most important thing is, if we're talking about sharing and being vulnerable, I think sharing things that we're not too sure about, our fears, our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations, are crucially important. And also, well, as you said earlier about being honest, I think that's important. I remember speaking with someone who's part of the community, the co-creation community that I'm within, and I was speaking to them about a kind of project that we were creating. And as we got deeper into the conversation, holding the space and listening and recapping to what they were saying, I remember saying to something, and I said, actually, I procrastinate a lot because of fear or fear of getting it right, getting it wrong, and I procrastinate a lot. And they couldn't actually believe that I procrastinated, because I think her perception of me is I was showing up, I was doing videos, I was doing podcasts, but actually I do procrastinate a lot because I want to get it right, I want to get it perfect. And years ago, it used to take me quite a long time to do videos, because, as you know, before we go on live, we're like, oh my God, what will people think? Have I got my notes? What story am I going to tell? How many likes will I get? We've got all this going through our mind. But it is really, what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, we're all human at the end of the day. And yes, we are going to have patterns and habits, but it's accepting those, and how do we use those in our benefit. So that's a crucial point.
I love that. This is so powerful, and I love the way how you shared it. It was just being you, just saying honestly how you feel and what you experience. And that's the thing, when you open up and you share something like that, for her it was such a shock. What do you mean, Adrian, you procrastinate? And I can relate to it. What's fascinating, and I'm sure you can relate to it as well, people often wonder if I'm 100% of my time being 100%, being bubbly, being high energy, being so, talkative and so happy. And I always ask them a question, well, can you imagine anything being 100%? Now, this balance. I cannot be 100% of my time, right? I do have my low moments. I do have my moments when I prefer to be just on my own, because this is my me time. And I'm very protective of my me time. And I need to have me time on my own, because it's called me time, right? And this when actually I rebuild myself, this actually when I reconnect with myself, ideally somewhere in nature, during the walk. But it's important to be real, be you. And especially in the world where right now, so many people actually pretend, like social media is absolutely flooded with everything being perfect, right? Perfect job, perfect business, perfect relationships, perfect life, perfect house. But the truth is, nothing is perfect. Absolutely nothing is perfect. So here we should remember that the more vulnerable you are, the more open you are, and the more you share, people will connect with you even better.
And there's loads of kind of stuff out there. So what will happen is you'll commit to a purpose, you'll commit to a vision, you'll be like, right, this is where I want my life to go. This is what gives my life a sense of meaning. This is where I feel aligned when I'm doing this work. And of course, what happens is we look at ways to get to that, because that's just normal. We all want to design and create and live our dreams. But what tends to happen is we try and find someone else's model, like the 7 steps, the 5 steps, the 6 steps. And essentially what those models do, they're only a simplified version of the real thing. Then we try to apply those models within our lives, and it doesn't exactly work out, and we feel frustrated with ourselves. But the only way that we're really going to create our own model is being prepared to kind of go into that unknown and do the work. I think this always comes up with me and you, but it's about doing the work on yourself to encourage you to kind of move forward. And also that will get to a place where you've got so much life experience, you'll develop your own model, your own philosophies for success. But so many people are actually scared to do that in the coaching world or the personal development world. They're scared to kind of put themselves out there. I mean, I've been involved in lots of different coaching groups, and sometimes when you mention live video or podcasts, they're like, oh my God, I could never get on live, I could never share my story. And you say, like you said earlier about sharing vulnerability, well, I can never be vulnerable. I can never talk about me experiencing depression and pushing through that and having a spiritual awakening and then finding my purpose and going on to kind of transform the world or whatever. People struggle to talk about that. And I think those are the stories that are really going to, for people to realize, I'm going through a similar experience, but Olga seems to be, 2 years down the line. Maybe Olga could help me, or maybe Adrian could help me. And I think it's our obligation or our duty to share some of those stories, those transformative stories with others.
Love that. And the best example I can give about vulnerability is just checking with yourself when you listen to somebody like a speaker, when you attend an event, or maybe you listen to somebody on YouTube and they share with you some motivational story, an inspiring story of their lifetime. And you listen to them, and for some reason, none of them ever so far said, I had an amazing life. I was born to a beautiful family and they loved me dearly and we had everything. We had no struggles. I finished perfect school. I met a perfect girl, a perfect guy, got married. We have perfect children. I mean, he probably booked and he'll be just probably never booked again, right? But what we always can relate to is struggles. So when people on the stage, when people in YouTube, on a YouTube video, when people in the movie, when anywhere there is a trouble, something what people go through, we can relate. That really connects you. And you relate simply because they are vulnerable. They are opening up, they become vulnerable in front of you, and that's why you relate and you connect.
Yeah.
Only through vulnerability you can really connect, only through being real. And it is scary. I'm not saying it is easy. I'm not saying you're just going to wake up tomorrow, going to share with the entire world your story. But how many people you and I, Adrian, know, even within our professional speaking association, who had real challenges in their lives? And now they are actually super mega stars simply because they learn how to share their exciting story. Exciting now, but wasn't back then, right?
I was watching something last night. It's about the Paralympics. And it was just the most amazing show that I've seen for some time. And the show starts, and they've got all this kind of like motivational music behind. And what they've got is all these kind of like Greek gods type thing, like those type of, those type of like kind of white statues with the kind of the gods. But all these gods had an arm missing or a leg missing, or they were all kind of having stuff missing. And the whole point of this was about the Paralympics. And now some of these journeys that these Paralympians went on were just. I was sat there thinking to myself, what's your excuse? Because some of these Paralympians, this whole story was about their different journeys. But it's relating to what you said around, everyone's had their story of trials, tribulations, and overcome adversity. But in many ways, their challenges, their struggles, missing an arm, missing two legs, they said that becomes their power, that becomes their strength. And there was this one lady who, when she was younger, she got meningitis. And she was a fencer, and her mum said to her, she came back from a fencing thing and she had a bruise on her face, and her mom said to her, didn't you put your mask on today? And she was like, no, I did put my mask on. And then this meningitis started eating away at her body. So she lost both of her legs and both of her arms, basically. And then she was like, I'm never going to fence again. And her dad said, yes, you are. So he got her up, put her in a wheelchair, and he taped a fencing sword onto this arm. So that just showed, if we're talking about relationships and relating and co-creating, that the father was like, you're still able to do this. And what happened was, she obviously had this, I would say, this desire, this pain, this something that was driving her, because she went against somebody in the final and she wasn't feeling it. She was feeling a little bit down. And she went against a Chinese lady who was also obviously disabled. But the Chinese lady had use of her hands. She had another hand, but she didn't have any legs. And this other lady had no hands, but with a fencing sword. And you could just see this desire to beat this other person. And then she went through all these trials and tribulations. She got 3 points. The other person got 3 points. She got 2. The other person got 2. And it was down to the last point. She was going to win the gold medal. But this power, this pain inside her just drove her, and she won the gold medal. And it was like such a heartfelt moment to watch this person that had overcome so much adversity. But there was like 10,000 people in this audience just, all clapping that person, which was, amazing. And I watched that last night. I think it's on like kind of Netflix, about the Paralympics.
Wow. Yeah. definitely want to watch it now as well. That's it. I know what I'm gonna watch this weekend.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Wow. But that's the thing. We usually stop ourselves because we don't have something. But if
Yeah.
you start thinking, what do you have? Right? Even in your relationships, whichever it is, business, friendship, or your intimate relationships, focus on what you have.
Mm.
On what you have built so far, what you have co-created so far, and start cherishing that, and from that start building even more. Just like Paralympics, people who are disabled, they actually decide, you know what, I'm not going to focus on being disabled.
Yeah.
I'll focus on where am I abled, where am I already abled, what do I still have. And for example, one of the, I think, most incredible motivational speakers is Nick Wojcik. I absolutely adore him, admire him, and I love him dearly, who was born without any limbs.
I know.
He has only one foot. That's it. I would say probably even half of the foot, right?
Yeah.
And yet, he is one of the best motivational speakers. I mean, for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And incredible what he was thinking to himself. Like, well, okay, I don't have limbs, but I have body. And that's true. How many of us, we still have other things in our lives which we can use to co-create something instead of focusing on what we don't have?
Yeah, and it's also understanding, you know, when we talk about those instances of people that, from when we look at them, they've overcome so much adversity, and we're kind of more able-bodied. And I think really it's about to change that relationship, how we relate to ourselves and how we go on that journey. It's really about what is our life's purpose, what is aligned to our soul, what are we here for? Because when we, as we always say, when we start to go on to that, what that starts to look at is it starts to look at how we relate to ourselves and others. Because when we go on that journey, we have to look at some of the patterns, the behaviors that are not working for us anymore. And that forces us to look at ourselves and what is there to learn for us. Because a lot of the time we blame other people, or we say it's their fault. And what is there to learn to us? And I think one of the most important things is learning to say sorry. You know, I apologize, even if you don't feel like you need an apology. And I remember working with this client once who left the country on bad terms. There were some breakups in the relationship, and that person then went off with somebody else, and they ended up coming back to this country. I was working with that client, and I could sense that there was unforgiveness within that person. And a lot of the times, if we don't forgive, we're essentially holding on to that. And I know people get that at a conceptual level. Yes, I don't want to forgive them, and I'm, you know, at some level, I'm holding on to that pain. But it takes real courage and vulnerability to forgive other people. And the great way that we can do that is by saying to them, I forgive you, please forgive me too.
Yes.
Just a very simple thing. And actually, the person I was coaching didn't realize this unforgiveness, the weight that it was holding up on them, as in the weight, the backpack they were carrying around of unforgiveness. And they were so scared when they were sending this message to the two people who, you know, kind of split up the relationship.
Yeah.
And they sent it to both of them, and then this massive weight came off their shoulders. So I think, like anybody who's listening, I think it's very important to ask for forgiveness and say, I forgive you, please forgive me too. Because then what that does is it allows you to get on with your life, but also allows the other people to get on and co-create and enjoy their life and put that pot to bed.
100%.
Yeah.
It's so profound. I love the fact you mentioned forgiveness. It's so important to release any anger within yourself, to let go of any disappointment, to absolutely let go of any sadness towards anything that happened to you in the past.
Yeah.
For the longer you hold it, for longer you are suffering, not others. And this is really, really important. And actually, you are taking me back to my client. Very similar story, but slightly different. It was with a person who actually lives in UK, and he had lots of resentment towards his dad. So what the situation was, for 10 years, prior to our coaching, he wasn't speaking to his dad because of what has happened in the past. And he wanted to get rid of that anger. So what he was saying, I don't care if we're ever going to speak, but I would love to be able to forgive him, and I can't forgive him. And I remember I gave him this little example, which I will also tell you here, Adrian, and also everybody who is watching us right now. I simply asked him this question. So imagine you hear a story that somebody killed a pregnant woman. How would you feel? And I wonder, Adrian, what would you say? Okay, what is the first thought you have when I tell you this stuff? Somebody killed a pregnant woman. What's the first thing you have? Do you have anger towards this person? Do you have thankfulness and gratitude towards this person? What do you automatically feel towards that person?
I think it's sadness that happened.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what if, I'll tell you the rest of the story, what if he killed that pregnant woman? The person killed that pregnant woman simply because she was attacking a group of 10 babies whom she was planning to kill.
That's a tough one.
Right?
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. I'd probably try to understand both I'll try to understand both perspectives.
Absolutely. But when you think 10 children, right? 10 children, 10 families will suffer, or one woman who is pregnant. So technically, a person who has bad attempts, bad things, bad thoughts in her head, and she's pregnant with a child who is not born yet. 10 versus 1.5 is like, I'm not sure, right? So instantly you have doubts. But that's exactly what happens in our brain when we start understanding other people's behavior. Because very often we are angry, we hate, we dislike, we don't understand, because we never took that time to really dig deeper and analyze why that person behaved in a certain way. And if we only just take the time and we start analyzing, just like we did with my client, we went, okay, why your dad was the way he was. Okay, let's dig deeper. We don't know the bottom story, but let's bring some examples. What do you know about your granddad from his side, right? What do you know about his mom? Okay, what do you know about his siblings? And we were able to draw this picture when actually my client said, you know what? It's not a surprise he was the way he was, simply because of what he's seen before, and simply because, with what type of people he grew up. And that helped him to release that anger.
Yeah.
Overnight, it wasn't, I would be a big liar if I would say that, right? It took him some time to take himself through this journey and through these steps to do that. But I was shocked, that would be the right word to say, when during the lockdown, we actually had another session, and he literally tells me, Olga, you will not believe this. My dad came over and we had a beer together. And Adrian, I just went glued to the screen because I was like, what? Right? I knew he will be feeling so much better. I knew he'll be able to release the anger. I knew he will forgive him because I know it works. But I was so surprised to hear that they had a beer together. And until now, because I double checked recently with him, until now, they have good relationships. And he said, I forgave him.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's a prime example of once we can, our physical reality changes. So our situations, circumstances, the opportunities of our life change when we can change the mental, emotional, spiritual ones. So when we're able to do that, it's a prime example of your whole reality changes. So that's quite an interesting thing. And actually, there must have been, with your client, there must have been some level of motivation to do that, whereas people deep down want to connect. I was having this conversation the other day with someone that came on a podcast, actually. And have you heard of Robert Cialdini?
Yes.
Yeah, he was talking. He's one of Robert Cialdini's 12 world trainers, basically, this guy. And he talks about social influence. And, human beings just want to connect. And we can, at some level, have our ego in place, saying, I'm never going to forgive that person. I don't want that person in my life. But deep down, we want to connect with everybody because we are all connected. So that is a very good example, really, of what happens when we change our mental, emotional, and spiritual world internally. But also, when we've got a certain amount of anger, which when somebody says something, does something, we react. What we do is we tend to identify with that. Okay, so that feeling is me. That's Olga. That's Adrian. Whereas actually, it's not. It's just an emotion. It's just an experience within our body. And what we have to learn to do is we have to learn to be. We can do that through meditation, or we can do that working with a coach, or we can do that. Going to types of workshops. We can be aware of our emotions internally. So when someone in a relationship or someone in our life triggers those things, we can become more conditioned to allow that experience to just flow and then choose the reaction. So often in life, someone says something, we choose the reaction. We do something we didn't want to do. The outcome is not what we want. And a great question when we're in an uncomfortable experience is to stay balanced. And then when the conversation is not going the right way, we ask ourselves, what's my outcome in this conversation? When we can ask what our outcome is in this conversation, what we find is the conversation steers towards the outcome that we want. Whereas when we're just kind of like a table tennis match, having a go at each other, we never get that outcome.
Very true.
That's it.
I love that. Adrian, I love the fact that you mentioned also various ways how you can deal with that. And you mentioned one of my favorite activities, which is meditation. And he actually had a question to you in terms of, the activities. In terms of building healthy relationships, okay? Because, we have to clear ourselves first through various processes, as you already mentioned. Just choose whichever suits you and work through that. But when it comes to building those relationships, do you think it's important to have routine together, activities together? Do you think there's something where people should start implementing for them in order to build healthier relationships?
Yeah, I think you have to realize, you have to understand what kind of a person you are. I'm very introverted, and then I'm also extrovert, so I'm kind of like a combination of both. And I need alone time. So I need me time to regenerate my energy, to fill my bottle back up, so I then can give more. But some people take energy from other people. So there's a misconception between introvert and extrovert. Introvert means that you regenerate your own energy. And extrovert means that you get energy from other people. So you have to recognize that which element you're in. So answer to your question, it's important to have time by yourself, and it's important to have common interests or things that you both do together. But also it's important to do things that the other person wants to do and you might not want to have that win-win or that kind of the compromise as well. So it's having a balance of all three, and then communicating that to other person, because if you love somebody, you're going to want to spend a lot of time with them. But also it's saying to them, actually, I would much prefer if I go on this walk myself, can you come next time? And just being clear with people. I think that's an important, you've got to have balance between different aspects.
I love that. I absolutely love that. The fact that you highlight that you need to have your own time as well as time together. And I must say that here we have to definitely remember one important attribute of chemical reaction in our brain, because for a man it is important to stay away from a woman to rebuild his testosterone. It's very often, especially after intimacy, men have the tendency to either pull away or disappear, or to go out with their friends, or just to get together with blokes and do some masculine stuff, almost like go chop the wood, play the football, something like aggressive, something like masculine. And very often women misunderstand it. They think they've done something. They said something wrong. They must have, behaved in the wrong way. But it's nothing to do with that. It's just understanding that men, they need time to themselves. Then to walk away from you because you are so feminine, because you give, especially the more feminine you are, the more he will need to rebuild his masculinity. And understanding that and being okay with that.
It's a massive point, because you have the masculine and the female energy, and like if it's constant, if it's always love, kisses, cuddles, you don't have a chance to rebuild your masculinity, to have that vitality, to have that motivation, and to have that intimacy. And then likewise, females have the masculine energy as well. So it's a kind of giving each of them both time to reconnect. And you've got to do things that fire up your vitality and your energy and replenish you. So it's a balance for me. I go to the boxing gym and I also do meditation. So it's a balance between both. So I really like that point, is that, yes, it is about being lovey-dovey, but you also have to disconnect from that and go off and do your man things, and women do their women things as well to give back. And I suppose that's what you were saying earlier, is about self-love. It's about just being clear on what's important to you and what's important to the other person, and encouraging that person. I remember when we moved to Southwest London, my girlfriend was new to the area, and I was very conscious that she wasn't in that many social circles because she was new to the area. So I encouraged her to go and integrate with social circles that are in line and important to you. Now she does CrossFit. She loves it. It's almost like her experiencing what I experienced in the rugby days, where people are cheering you on, like, go, go, go. And she comes back, she's like, oh my God, it was amazing. I was last, but people were cheering me on. So it's important to have those social circles that support you, and you're interacting with other people as well. Because again, that creates space where you've got time to think and also process. Because if you're constantly in someone's pocket, you're not going to be able to process what you've learned. You're not going to be able to process what your emotions. You're not going to be able to process your experiences. So you're going to feel a sense of conflict over time. So that's very important.
Very, very true. Yes. And I love the fact you also follow that rule of having your own time. That's really important. But actually, we have here 2 great comments. Would you be open to take these comments?
Yeah, there's a few. There's a few questions and a few comments. So we can both answer them if you want.
Yes, we have lots of people joining us actually from abroad. We have people from Dubai, Iran, Egypt, and Germany. And some people don't say where they join from, so it's okay. But do let us know where you're joining us from. But let me just read this one. It's not fully showing on the screen, so I'll read the whole thing here. Shazli says, healthy relationships can be improved unless you build and choose your partner rightly before it begins choosing. Choosing right by your soul is the key to healthy relationships. You can't transfer a monkey to a bear or a goat. I love that.
And I think it goes back onto the point that we were saying earlier. So thanks very much for that comment. It's a great comment. But I think it was going back to what we were saying earlier is if you're going on dates or you're hanging around with someone, how do you feel? Like, do you feel good? Or do you feel bad? And that's a good barometer to work out subconsciously if they're aligned with you. But also, there's so many people that have, as we spoke about earlier, about this perfectionism about, here's all the pros that I want, and here's all the cons, and there's 10 ticks, and it's like, I've been single. How long have you been single for? 10 years. And it's like, okay, maybe have 2 or 3 things that are important to you. I know you said earlier that you'd met someone and they're in the similar industry, so that's obviously something that's important to you. But actually, there might be a couple of things that you do they're not aligned with, and you're not aligned with. So it's saying, do we like hanging out with each other? Are we on similar paths? Do we have similar interests? And how do we feel around each other? Do we feel good? And then giving it a go and seeing how it evolves. But so many people find it challenging to commit to a period of time. And I think before I found my girlfriend, I think I probably had high expectations of other people because I had high expectations of myself. And then I was single for many years, and then it was actually none of those expectations were around when I met my girlfriend. It was just how she made me feel. And then what happens is, because you love each other and it's how that person makes you feel, they start to like what you like what they like. Now she's into personal development, she's into coaching. I'm not a massive one for going into central London all the time because I quite like it in where I am, Southwest. But actually, I go into central London because I know it's important to her. So I think that's you've got to be willing to give things a try and also compromise. Because what I found is that there are going to be arguments, right? There is going to be times when you disagree, but it's realizing that that's not who that person is. And when you argue or you have in differences. It's about apologizing and saying sorry, and I think that's, a lot of people want this perfect relationship where you don't argue. But again, it's a balance between two, because it's how you deal with them. There's certain people that would argue and then not speak to that person for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And I would say that it's about apologizing as soon as possible, and then just working out, communicating, that didn't work for me, or that did work for me, what will we do next time? And then moving on and moving forward, and not holding that.
100%. I love how you highlight that. That is really, really magical. I think people will be just absolutely out by your value here. But let me just share this last question, and then we'll be wrapping up this. So Tejasvi is asking actually a question. I met someone new just before the pandemic. Love the way we connected. Now in long distance and lockdown, inability to physically meet has limited expression and progress for me. There is a wall I hit in expressing over the phone and video. Any suggestions? That's a wonderful question. I think many people can relate to that. What do you think about this, Adrian?
So let me just get clear. What's your view on what he's actually asking on that question? Just so I'm clear on what he's actually asking.
What I can hear as a question is that the person hit the wall about expressing and progressing, right? So probably expressing of feelings, the way how I see that. I mean, we would love to hear actually more. Tejasvi, is it about feelings? Is it about progressing where the relationship is going? Is it about getting more clarity? Because what I hear that he is limited, or they are limited, in order to actually express themselves and also progress. But he says for me, so most it's about him actually in this situation. Yeah, I personally think it's about, again, going back to vulnerability. It's about expressing and saying, hey, I know we are in a long distance relationships, but what can we do to get closer? Can we talk on a video more often? Maybe we can have a dinner with together, right? Maybe we can go for walks together. Maybe we can watch a movie together. Okay, we can't watch it together, but we can watch the same movie, and we can do it as we go, right? So that would be my view on how actually you can connect even deeper. Activities doing together, even though it is in a video, describing situation, maybe describing how they would feel the touches and kisses when they would meet again. And again, I probably would say here, and I wonder, would you agree or not, probably to go back to love languages and to find out, just what is your love language? What is your partner's love language? And simply speak at the same love language to each other. The chance you will have the same is very little, just like we have people with so many different languages, which are spoken languages. But same time, at least you can connect better if you speak each other languages. And actually, Tejasvi here is sharing more details. Thanks for asking context. She is more confident. Let me just share it there. So she's more confident of how she feels about me and expresses more. I am unable to meet that level. Wow. How profound that he actually admits that. Isn't it brave and profound how he does it?
Yeah, that's a great way to start. Maybe what you could say to her is, hi Olga, I really appreciate your ability to express how much you love me and how much you care for me. And sometimes I find that challenging. And is there, can you help me with that? And it's being clear on. It's being clear on validating, as you put there, she is more confident. It's validating. I understand that you're more confident in how you can express yourself. I just want you to know that sometimes I find that difficult to express the same level. And I just want you to realize that that's not my intention. And also asking her is, how can I show you love? How can I show you that I care? Because actually, as Olga said, it might not be through language. It might be through another way. So it's working that out as well. And one thing that worked for me, certainly around conflict, it might be similar to this, but this is another way when we feel when we feel that the other person's negatively impacting us, so this might not be in this case, but this is quite a good thing. We can say, and we have to be factual about it. We can say, I know that you did X, and that makes me feel Y. Is that your intention? So we can say, I know the other day that you ignored me, and that made me feel like, bad about the relationship. Is that your intention? Because then we start to bring to light that person's behavior. So that's my kind of personal experience and advice on that. But I suppose some questions that you can ask yourself is, how could you express yourself? In what way could you express yourself? If it's not through words, if it's through another way. Because remember that we express through poems, we express through pictures or stories or gifts. So what would stop you writing a letter or a poem and then sending that as well, rather than a message?
I love that. And what you said there is really, really romantic and beautiful, because it's not only you express it verbally, you can write it down. Or you can create a card, an e-card. You can do whatever else. It's really, really powerful. But I must say here, probably me being me, loving to get to nitty-gritty, I probably would love to also find out and dig deeper why you can't express. Okay, let's remember you being a man, okay? And if you read a book, let me see if I have it around me here. No, I don't have it, because I'm reading that book. Oh yeah, it's upstairs in my bedroom. Because right now I'm rereading that book, which is a Bible of relationships. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And I would definitely recommend you to read that. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Because that book specifically talks about how different men are from women. You being a man, you naturally are less expressive. Because men, they are all about going and doing and organizing and delivering. And women are more about nurture and care and communication. So here you self-beating yourself for you being normal is not fair on yourself, right? Can you get better? Absolutely. I mean, I had so many clients, men, and I mean, some of them were like rugby players and boxers. They were like huge blokes coming to me saying their wives complaining because they have zero communication. And within 20 minutes, that would be sobbing in front of me, simply because something would happen to them in their past, in their childhood, young years, first relationships, could be many scenarios, and that blocked them from opening up, right? Yeah. Situations such as one of my clients, he broke his arm and he fell off the tree. He went to tell his dad, and his dad simply told him, go lie down on the bed, you're gonna go away. That's it. That simple situation blocked him forever, and he was unemotional, unexpressive, not able to open up, right? Another client, he was simply told, when you talk like that, you are like a girl. No man wants to be like a girl. So he stopped talking. He was saying yes, no, whatever, minimal communication, but he was not expressive anymore. And I can go on and on and on with examples. So here I would suggest just, first of all, accept that you are a man and you are different. Okay, read the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. You will learn a lot, I can guarantee you. And probably second step, also read the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It is really powerful book. It will give you so much understanding, and also it will help you to really get to nitty-gritty of your girlfriend and yourself. Yeah. That's really powerful.
That's really great advice. The love languages are very, very an interesting perspective, because it's how we receive love and how we give love. So yeah, that's a great way. And if I go back on to Jaswi's comments, I think it was about be confident and express more. The interesting thing is about confident, the word, a lot of people think, I need to have confidence in myself. Got to have more confidence. But actually confidence, it means to confide, which means basically to get confidence, we can either have confidence in ourselves, or people have to have confidence within us. Yeah. So if Olga's got confidence in Adrian, I will feel confident, and then vice versa. Yeah. So that's an important perspective. And if we look at the word confidence, it means full trust. So a question that Tajasvi might want to consider is, what do you need to have full trust in? Because it's about, do you have full trust in the relationship? Do you have full trust in yourself? And how can you develop more confidence within yourself and within the other person? Because I kind of get a sense that there's something you need to open your heart to. And if somebody's giving you love and you're not giving that full love, that it is about just opening up your heart and allowing love to come in and being okay with the feeling of love. Some people experience that feeling of love and they close themselves up, or they go and do something to avoid it. But it's just sitting with that feeling of love from another person. So I think you said, quick question, Adrian, can I ask, relating to this point about appreciating what girlfriend has made him feel, can he share what feelings she has made him feel to realize how he loved her? So I didn't quite understand that question, but
asking you to, because I was looking at this question as well, just about to read it. He's actually wondering, can you share what did you feel, like how she made you feel and realize that you actually love her? Basically, probably he's right now questioning himself, do I love my girlfriend, whom he just met? And he wants to know, what did you feel? How did you realize that you love your girlfriend, Adrian?
Wow, that's quite a profound question.
Actually,
a great question. I think like, I didn't second guess. I didn't go like, is it the one? Isn't it the one? Should it be? Shouldn't it be? It was just unquestionable. It's like, yeah, I really like this person. I feel good around this person. I'd like to progress it. And if I had some kind of insecurities or I wasn't sure about it, I'd probably ask myself, what is there for me to learn? What is there for me to learn in this experience? And I think being honest with ourselves, do I want to progress it? Do I want to progress what we have? And if the answer for me was a yes by listening, then it's a yes because you can feel it. And if there was some kind of inner conflict, like a no or something that wasn't quite sure, I would also listen to that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for this share. That's very vulnerable. And I hope everybody who's watching us right now is actually appreciating you sharing this with us. But thank you so much, everybody who was watching us all this time. I really appreciate it. And I would love to finish off with this marvelous comment from Tajasvi as well. He says, you both got me there. Thank you for the empathy. Good advice. Just a quick follow-up. I will learn more about how I can express myself. How can I handle the responsibility I feel when I feel she is ahead of me and feeling more love, more for me than me feeling for her? I feel guilty. Darling, don't feel guilty. You're on a journey. You're on a journey of understanding yourself and your girlfriend. And that's a beautiful combination between you two. Because right now, both of you are just learning and improving yourself. That's a very, very wonderful. And actually, Tajasvi is thanking you as well. Thank you, Adrian. Simple but profound answer. Olga, can you share any learning from your experience? We're going to go on this show forever, Adrian, today. I hope you have another 10 hours. Okay, really quick answer here, because we definitely need to wrap up. And I want to be really respectful of Adrian's time.
Yeah, it's all good.
Beyond 1 hour. So really quickly here, my experience in terms of what happens when you fall in love. It is about, just like Adrian said in the very beginning, feeling good about that person, right? When you look at that girl of yours and you look at her and you understand, you know what, that's it. You are the girl with whom I want to wake up tomorrow. I can't now, but I want to. And then the week later and then a year later, and you know what, forever. You're the person I want to see when I grow up old. And here, I'm not sure if you have children or not, you don't have children, but if you do have children, ask yourself a question. If that girlfriend would be a girlfriend of my son, would I be happy with that choice? And if the answer is yes, that means it's healthy. If the answer is no, that means probably there is some sort of addiction to this relationship, which probably you wouldn't advise to your child to have. And if you don't have children, okay, one day you will, okay. So in that case, then imagine yourself having a child. And if that girl would be your daughter-in-law, would you be happy to have her? Right? Because very often when it comes to ourselves, it's quite difficult to make decisions. But when it comes to our children, we're so overprotective that we want only the best for them. And it's easier to make a decision when you imagine your children being in that situation. And lastly, I probably would just say, enjoy. People meet for a reason. Okay, whether the reason is for you to meet and stay together and co-create beautiful things, just like a light bulb and electricity. Without electricity, light bulb just a light bulb. Without the light bulb, electricity is just electricity. But when they both meet, they give light. Okay, so if you're meant to give light, in that case, co-create together. Enjoy the process, whether it is a week, a year, or a lifetime. However, if something happens and you're not together anymore, you still are a light bulb or electricity. You don't become any less if you don't have her in your life, right? But of course, ask for your own intentions. What would you like to have with her? Whether it is love story or just short term or not term at all. That's important to remember.
Yeah, I think it's important because, we've I know, getting deep. We've only got one life, and spend it with time with people that make you feel good. And if you're not where she's at and she's able to give love, just accept yourself that's what's happening, and just ask, what their experience is, and not necessarily what they want from you, but what would they want more of in the relationship, and then I'm happy to do that. Because obviously there's some needs that aren't being met there. Just being clear with each other in a nice way what those needs are, and then satisfying those needs from the other person's perspective as well. And then you'll find that there's more of a balance in the relationship. But realizing that you're not perfect, you haven't got it all worked out, and we're human at the end of the day, and just being able to have a conversation about it. Look, I've noticed that this is how you are, and that's cool, and I'm not trying to change you, but I've also noticed this is what I do as well. How can we work on that together, and how can you help me, and how can I help you? And I think it's important to ask perspectives from people, because very much like what we did beforehand, before this whole thing, we worked out what's important to you, what's important to me. Well, actually, this is important to me. Let's work. And then we came up with the title "Healthy Relationship and Co-Creating Together," and now we're talking about it passionately because we agreed what was important to us both, and that allows us to express who we are.
Absolutely. And, relating to express who we are, we actually have here an absolutely phenomenal testimonial to you and me, Adrian.
Wow, I know.
It says, wow, you both are so vulnerable in your sharing. I admire that quality and have it in me as well. This session gave me more than what I thought I came for. Please do more of these. Have rarely seen such contextual and simple advice.
Maybe we do. Maybe we do a monthly session, me and you.
I think we should.
Putting the worlds to rights.
Definitely. Well, to be honest, I think actually, Adrian, if you look at the previous sessions, and everybody who's watching us right now, you can go to YouTube and type Adrian Hales and Olga Geidane, and you will see previous episodes as well. I think roughly we do like once a month episode.
Yeah, once every 6 weeks, and maybe we could actually do a Q&A, get some questions ahead of time, so we could get them maybe a week beforehand and just get everyone live. That'd be awesome.
Yes, let's look into that. But Adrian, I enjoyed that so much. You are always a pleasure to talk to. You are a wisdom, a pool of wisdom. You are the person to go to when it comes to any mindset questions, any relationship questions, any business questions, because you're so savvy to when it comes to our mentality. And I absolutely admire that quality.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Oh, it's true. It's just true. Thank you. But Adrian, do you mind to share with us how people can get in touch with you? And also, please tell us about your podcast, because I know there's some great news happening about your podcast.
Yeah, I think so people can get in touch with me. My new website is getting built, which will be adrianhales.com. That will be launched in the next couple of weeks because I kind of changed my branding and my website. So now specifically focus on kind of work with high achievers, coaches, and leaders and business owners. What I tend to do is resolve inner conflict to awaken their inner power. So what I work is very much about the emotional, mental, and spiritual, changing that world so people can change their physical realities. So whatever that is, whatever that person wants to achieve. So, and people can get in touch with me through my Facebook as well. And the podcast is essentially called Superhuman Journeys, which is about stories of very human people. You've been on it, and how we've faced adversity, how we've overcome that. And it's essentially created that I believe that everybody, as we spoke about at the start, is everybody has a life purpose, deeper purpose to achieve in the world. And everybody has a unique superhuman talent and gift to bring, to express to that world and to make a difference to other people's lives and live their reality, live their dreams. But a lot of people, through fear, lack of confidence, inner conflict, aren't doing that. So the podcast is a message to inspire people to move beyond those limitations that are keeping them stuck and towards following their path and higher purpose.
That's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I also know that it got really popular recently and progressed massively. So everybody, what I will do actually, I will share the link to your podcast below this video so people can find...
You're on it. Your episode.
And to make sure people can listen to that and learn from you. But Adrian, it was an absolute pleasure to have you back in my studio, to actually have this conversation with you, to learn from you and to share this knowledge with so many people. And Tejasvi, I'm so happy we're able to answer your questions today. And if you could, those who are watching us right now, if you could, please share this video so actually you can help to spread the word of building healthy relationships and co-creating together, as we spoke today about this topic with Adrian. So thank you so much, everybody who was with us today and who stayed with us until the very end. We really appreciate you. If you have any questions, please do get in touch with Adrian. Please do get in touch with me as well. We'll be looking into doing this on a regular basis. So your questions are more than welcome, because we're basing our episodes based on your questions. But Adrian, thank you so very much. I'm sending you my virtual hug. I hope we're going to be able to see each other very soon again after this lockdown. But at the meantime, enjoy your time. And thank you so much for your generosity of your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much for your wisdom and also your vulnerability. And make sure you listen to Olga's episode, which is Harnessing the Power of Vulnerability.
Oh, I remember that was a good one. I really enjoyed being on your podcast. That was it. You got so many things out of me, actually.
It was a good, vulnerable podcast, and it's all very humbling stuff. It's a very real conversation, but also a respectful one as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, everybody have a wonderful weekend, whatever you do, and we'll see you definitely at 1 p.m. on Monday with a new amazing episode. Take care. Bye-bye.